Right, okay, here we go. So, this tip is about underpainting. Um, I'm sure some of you probably know what an underpainting is in traditional kind of media, but you can kind of do a similar thing for digital painting. You can kind of do an underpainting, but whereas when you're doing it traditionally, the underpainting has to be obviously the very, very first thing you do. Underpainting in digital means that you can do the underpainting right at the very, very end, and that's how I personally sort of like to do it. Because I don't have to be thinking about it at the beginning. But you can totally do it at the beginning if you want to. What's the purpose of the underpainting? It's going to be, it's going to give you that elusive juiciness, potentially, to your picture. Because the way I tackle underpainting, which is very heavily inspired by the way that Shadi Safadi does his underpainting, is that you take, I'll show you. Right, let's take this, right? This isn't finished at all, but I can use this as an example of how you would begin to prepare an underpainting based on an image you've almost done already, okay? The first thing, what does an underpainting need to be? To be effective, to provide you with that nice, juicy colour vibration, you kind of want your underpainting's colours to be the complementary colours, or the colours on the opposite side of the colour wheel, to your actual base kind of image. So if I just did a Control-I on this, I can sort of see straight away what the sort of fairly dominant complementary colour is going to be. It's going to be this kind of cyany, kind of cool blue, but I'm going to mix it with some sort of pinks as well. Now, the good thing about colour painting is, an underpainting, is you don't really have to think too much about it. What you're interested in is getting something fairly vibrant, because the more vibrant it looks, the more of a punchy kind of effect it's going to have on your actual image. So I create a new layer. It doesn't really matter what brush you use, because you kind of essentially just be creating a kind of coloured jumbled mess to begin with. So I'm going to start off with this one just here, but I'm going to go into my brush settings, and I'm going to turn colour dynamics on. If you've never used colour dynamics before, this means it's going to automatically, as you paint strokes, it's going to vary the hue, saturation, the brightness, and the purity, or don't even know what purity is, by these percentage amounts. So it's just a good way of getting some semi-random variations on the colour that you actually pick. So I'm just going to bump these up a little bit more, and I'm going to choose that kind of fairly saturated, fairly kind of bright kind of blue. I'm going to make this brush big, and on this brand new layer, I'm just going to go like this. Can you see the effect that color color variation had? So it's not giving me just that blue, it's kind of varying the saturation and the hue and the brightness of it. So I'm going to just fill up the image like this, not really thinking too hard about it. Then I might change a brush. Let's go down to something maybe like, no, not that one, this one. And I'm going to, I always lose my brush settings. Oh yeah, just there. I'm going to turn off texture for this, and I'm going to make that bigger, and I'm just going to sample from what I've already got. I just want to create a nice, messy kind of look. This is a little bit like that technique we did in the first week, where you find a kind of an abstract picture and you kind of set it to overlay. It's similar to that, but as you'll see, it's also quite different. It provides you with more control this way. So I'm going to go for some pinks as well, fairly saturated pinks. I'm just going to brush across it, and then I'm going to sample from it and sort of blend it in like this. This would be a great opportunity as well to use the mixer brush. Once you've got something laid down, you can bring the mixer brush in and just sort of swirl it all around like this. So you end up with something that looks like a cool modern art abstract painting that you could sell at Sotheby's for $250 million. What you're actually going to do here, though, is that you're going to actually put this, once you've done this, you're going to put it below. It's an underpainting after all, so let's put it below the actual painting, so to speak. Now the idea here is you create a layer mask, and you when we paint black into the layer mask now, our main image, the layer below, is going to begin to show through in little sort of small amounts. But because you're painting into a layer mask, you've got tons of control of exactly where this kind of colour comes in. Again, it's going to be easier to show you. I'm going to use that sort of big textury speckly brush again. I'm going to make sure that I'm not on mixer brush. And I'm going to choose, I'm on black already. So I'm going to choose black, make it fairly big, and I'm just going to lightly dust it across. So you can see some of that blue is beginning to show through from the layer below. You just want to sort of initially just dust it, light kind of glazing across. And then every now and again you want to switch it back to black and eat away at it again. And let's change the brush. This is quite a nice one just here because it's softer and a little bit more opaque, or transparent, sorry, I should say. So you can move this across like this and then switch back to eat back into it again. What this is going to give you is going to give you these, depending on how much you do it, it's going to give you every now and again this kind of complementary colour that is kind of showing through a little bit into your image. And it's going to just add loads of richness and juiciness to your image. And because it's a layer mask, you can decide exactly where you want it to be. And it's a nice way of getting colours in there that would be very difficult to just come up with during the actual process of painting it. This is really nice because you can do it after you've done everything. This is like like I mentioned, that sort of that 10%, that final 10% polish kind of stuff. So yeah, that's Anthony's Friday quick tip.